business, as is Woollaston, who incidentally I think has taken a holiday himself, so we'll have to see how these two guys play out there tonight.
Thank you. First frame, Mark Williams to back.
So it's the world champion to get us underway, as per usual with the European Tour events. First to 4 frames to go through, although the final will be played over 5, or the first to 5 I should say, the best of 9. And is this season going to be a lap of honour for that man, or can he replicate the sort of form he showed last season? Of course, it wasn't just his World Championship triumph that impressed. He won 3 other events. Won the Northern Ireland Open in dramatic fashion against Yan Bingtao in a final frame decider. Prior to that, he won the 6 Reds World Championship, beating Tepchire and Nguyen. Well, he demolished Graham Dott in the final in Berlin in the German Masters, which was a real indication that he was back to his very, very best.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the head-to-heads, it is a surprise that Woollaston is so far ahead, but there's an argument if you forget the season that's just gone, where Williams came back to form. Woollaston's been actually more consistent in the last 3 or 4 seasons than Mark Williams, because Williams had been struggling. I don't forget he didn't even qualify for the World Championships last year, 2017, beaten in qualifiers by Stuart Carrington. Whereas Woollaston, you know, has been sort of knocking on the door a little bit more, but this man has achieved a lot more in the game, of course, than Woollaston.
We saw plenty of that at the Crucible. And of course he's always been famed for his long game, which rather went missing for a few seasons, but certainly seems to be back with a vengeance.
Well, that one went straight in the middle of the pocket without touching the sides. Something in his eye, I think, was the reason he's just delayed his next shot. We're just searching actually through the recent matches, and Ben Woollaston is straight through in the World Open to play a wild card. He's not had to play a qualifier. Couldn't seem to see his result. I didn't really doubt that he would have entered, because he seems to enter everything. But he's one of the few players that go straight over there and play a wild card, which is slightly different to how it used to be, because you'd often win your qualifier and play a subsequent match. Not how they're doing it this time around.
13.
Mark Williams, of course, credits his extraordinary renaissance last season with his hookup with Stephen Feeney, the mastermind behind the sight-right method of cueing. And we found out a few weeks ago, didn't we, that Ronnie O'Sullivan has now signed up as well, which is an interesting development. O'Sullivan, who had an outstanding season himself, of course, winning what was for him a career record 5 titles in a single campaign.
Which suggests to me his alignment was not out. But anyway, that's the decision he's made, and good luck to all concerned.
19.
Yeah, and O'Sullivan has said that he's been blown away, quote-unquote, by his early experiments with the sight-right method, which is basically a method of cueing with your eyes as opposed to your body in terms of your alignment on the shot. It's obviously a very technical matter, but it's something that Williams has certainly embraced in pretty spectacular fashion, having been initially sceptical. And many other top pros have used the system, among them Stuart Bingham, another former world champion, of course. Pretty sharp start, isn't it, Neil, for a guy who's barely picked up his cue since he won the world title?
Seems that way. I mean, obviously, I can certainly get the feeling he's not been practicing he's very much into the social media side of things, big on Twitter, isn't he? And
23.
he always seems to be out somewhere just taking in the sun, basically being seen anywhere where there isn't a snooker table. But he's back on one now. sometimes you can start a match well, and we saw that in the previous match that we've witnessed, where Ali Carter defeated Ryan Day, but there was some very good snooker play. But when the pressure came on, that's when one or two pots went wrong for both players. Now he's got choices here. If he's queuing awkwardly, he's always got the red to the right corner that he's close to. Always very unflappable, as we've probably said a million times, but he's got a very languid, easy manner around the table. He always has had.
And his ability to shut out disappointments and stay in the moment, well, that was very much in evidence, wasn't it, at the climax of his match with Higgins when he missed a sitter on the cusp of victory. Higgins punished him. And for many players, that would have been the end mentally, but he regrouped superbly to get over the line in one of the best finals the Crucible has ever staged.
Yes, and he made the point, because the final got very nervy when he should have won the previous frame before he went on to score his great victory. And he missed a comfortable pot, and John Higgins cleared up. And didn't stop him going out and winning the next frame and claiming the victory 18-16. He should have won 18-15. But he did say also that his semi-final win against Barry Hawkins was where he did get nervous for one of the first times in his career. Looked like it was going to go all the way to a decider, and he cleared up, thought he'd missed the last black. Said he was nervous, but in general he doesn't seem to feel the nerves, or so he says.
$41.
He didn't hit that one particularly well. The cue didn't really go through all that straight, and he almost missed the pot. He's lucky to be on the blue the way he is, actually. Good recovery.
$47.
Williams has said the most special aspect of his third world title was the fact that he was able to do it with his wife and 3 sons watching.
48.
And they were getting very excited up in the balcony as he was clearing up to win. They wouldn't have been alive when he won his second world title against Ken Doherty back in 2003. So for Williams to show his children just how good he really is on the biggest stage of all, just put the cherry on top of the cake.
Well, he's not quite done so here, though. Put the cherry on top of the cake. This frame is not yet over. He's gradually got further and further out of position. This is a tricky one. That's the problem with that shot. If you miss it, there's only one place it's going to finish, and that's right over the pocket. And that's what happened there.
Well, there's still 75 on the table for Woollaston to mount a fight back. And that's been aborted very quickly.
Well, that is a nightmarish outcome. I mean, he puts top on, and as soon as you do that, it's only going to go one place, and that's backwards, but not in behind the red. That could hardly have finished worse. It's a pretty evil-looking snooker who's put himself in as well. Self-inflicted. He nominated blue, but this is not going to be easy to hit, in fact. He's twice across. Goodness. Well. Talk about getting yourself into trouble.
Williams 5.
Yeah, and there's not that much wiggle room here for Woollaston after Williams built his 50-plus lead. 57 now, the difference.
Yes, you're going to have to be very careful here. He's so tight in behind the red that in hitting a colour, he's just got to make sure he gets that done soon, because he could end up further behind than what he can afford to concede, and he won't be able to win the frame. It's a horrible snooker. Trying the blue again, he's got to readjust or adjust to the right angle. So easy to slip beyond it. So if he plays the blue again, at least if he misses it, it won't be called a miss, because there'll be 67 in it. So I think he should stick with the blue.
Blue. Foul. Mark Williams, 4.
Surely it's 5 away, isn't it?
Yeah, he was going for the blue.
Why would it be 4 away?
Missed the blue, and so it should be foul 5 away, not 4.
I thought he called 4, didn't he? But anyway, 5 is the miss, and no miss is called, because personally I don't agree with that rule, because if he'd have played on the brown there, another miss would have been called because there'd have been 66 in it. To me, that's a loophole, a hole in the new rule. But what's more relevant is that Woollaston is in a lot of trouble in this frame.
Yeah, the best he can do is tie, and he needs blacks with the remaining 5 reds and all the colours to do that.
Well, he's got to land on the black, and it's a good effort. It really is a terrific shot to finish there. You couldn't have put it any better with your hand as to where he would like to have been.
Still waiting for a major ranking title, but he has won a couple of European Tour events, Ben Woollaston. Very capable cueist. But that looks as though it may have gone wrong. In fact, this whole frame has been one to forget thus far for Woollaston.
8.
No margin for error at all.
Ben Woollaston, 8.
I think in general it is going to be interesting to see how this season goes, as you pointed out earlier on, that for someone like Mark Williams to have achieved all he has achieved in the game, but especially in the last year, it's not going to be easy to just rock up and play to that level again. And I think that's why he said, well, he would enjoy the moments, certainly the time after he won the title, because he didn't enjoy it quite so much in previous years. I would have him down as to be more dangerous in the very big events like the Masters or maybe the World Championships again, the UK Championships. Might be able to raise his game for those events, but possibly not so for other events that lead up to it. We'll see.
And there have been times during his career where motivation has seen him fall off the radar. Remember, at one stage he was very nearly on the verge of falling out of the top 32. He ended up recovering his form to get back to world number 1, and then rather drifted away again. But having won a 3rd world title, which by his own admission he couldn't have dreamt about 2 or 3 seasons ago, motivation could well be a factor again. Meanwhile, Ben Woollaston is trying to turn this frame in his favour. It's a long shot. But he's still just about in the hunt. And that's another
9.
Excellent pot, but of course he needs a... Well, he needed a black with it.
I don't know what he's thinking of. I mean, he's played no kind of effort to get onto the black, so I think he either misread the scores or something, but I think you'll find that he lost the opening frame to the world champion there.
Yes, it was almost as though Woollaston forgot that he needed not only high value colours but blacks with the remaining reds, and that was just to force a tie. Well, that scenario has well and truly been put to bed now, and the world champion has the first frame safely on the board.
9. $16. 18.
Williams trousered £885,000 and change last season.
21.
Career prize money now just below 6 million. He was already one of the all-time greats, but that reputation has only been enhanced by what he did at the Crucible in the spring. In the meantime, he takes the opening frame here in Riga. He leads Ben Woollaston by 1 frame to 0. 3 more will put him through to the round, and then I think forgetting that he needed a high value colour to have any chance of turning it around when he potted along red. Anyway, that frame has gone. Move on with the next. And the winner of this will play Zhang Yong of China, who beat Rory McLeod earlier today, 4-0. Again, vintage from long range.
Well, we've seen a couple already in this match, and they are a continuation of where he left off at the Crucible in early May.
Yeah, there were times, weren't there, Neil, during that tournament when he was showing off his new sighting system by closing his eyes and potting balls, and he did it with extraordinary regularity, presumably just to check that everything was as it should be in terms of his stance and the positioning of his hands. And he closed his eyes tight shut, pot the ball anyway.
Yeah, that was a new one on me, but you're right, it certainly happened a few times. The other thing that happened, of course, was when he won the title, he did his press conference naked, as he said he would. He would do it in the nude, and one or two journalists actually thought that was some kind of a contrived thing, but it couldn't have been less so. He said he would do it, and he did it, and you can't have it both ways. I mean, I did see a little bit of criticism of that, but
17.
the same people say there are no characters in the game anymore. Where's the middle ground? It was all very tastefully done. He had a towel on, happened to have the sponsor's logo, but I thought it was all done in reasonably good taste. Wouldn't want to see it happen all the time, but it added to what was a remarkable success story, I thought.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he had offered to do that, and I think it was only after the first round or two, suggests that no one was more surprised than he was to achieve what he did, even allowing for the fact that he'd had a terrific season. He was still relatively long odds, wasn't he, to win the world title at the start of the campaign.
Well, he's finished a little awkwardly here. This red he can get to, but the way that he's cueing it means the shot is probably 5 times more difficult than it already was. That's the reason, that cueing down on the ball. Oh, that's sweet. It's a terrific shot. You cue down like that, if you put any side on it, really exaggerates the way that it would react. Now, this is a bright start from the world champion.
28.
He's the oldest world champion
29.
at the Crucible since Ray Reardon when he went on to score. Which of course would have been way back in 1978, so we're talking history made.
36. 37. 44. 45.
'That applause just now was for Kyron Wilson, last season's Masters finalist, who's
50.
made short work of Luke Simmons, winning 4-0. Luca Brissell is on the comeback trail, having fallen
53.
3-0 behind pretty swiftly to Mark Davis. It's now 3-2 though. Ollie Lyons, whose father Peter, of course, lost earlier to Mark Allen. Well, he's on the cusp of winning. 3-1 up on Alfie Burden. And Jack
60.
Lazowski and Ian Burns locked together at 2 frames all. Real signs of progress for Lazowski last season, Neil. We know what a natural talent he is, but there was a bit more consistency about his results as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes this season.
Well, he would need to move forward again, I think, but the talent's always been there, and as you say, signs that he's putting it to better use maybe than he'd previously done. That's a good shot. He didn't know entirely where the cue ball was going to finish, but he gave it every chance to get onto a colour the way that he played it. This is excellent. He's cueing very sweetly. In general, the older players, the old guard, well, he showed up the younger players
67.
last year with great success from, obviously, from Mark Williams, from Ronnie with his 5 ranking tournament wins. John Higgins tasted success as well, winning the Welsh. And players like Lazowski and 1 or 2 others have really got to step up, I think. Otherwise, we could see the same again this year with the 40-somethings dominating the game.
70.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, that the so-called class of 92, Williams, Higgins, O'Sullivan, more than a quarter of a century on, are still
77.
the best in the world. They proved that emphatically last season.
78.
There was a time when you were considered past it, when you'd reach your middle to late 30s in this game of snooker, but that's certainly not been the case in the last few seasons.
85.
Experience counts for a great deal, but also a great deal of class, and that particular 92 vintage, well, I wonder whether we'll ever see its like again, with 3 of the all-time greats turning pro at the same time. Mark Williams picking up where he left off at the Crucible so far. Ben Woollaston has... It was a pretty disappointing season, it has to be said, last time out for Ben Woollaston. Made the Paul Hunter Classic quarter-finals, losing to Sean Murphy, but that was as good as it got for him. Quite a few early exits. Just 18 centuries last season for Woollaston, so he'll be looking for something much better this season.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Ben Woollaston has not quite gone on with his career. He's still a very good player, and he was consistent at the very early stages of tournaments. Went a long way into last season by winning his opening match, but not progressing any further, which is clearly not what you want. The way that the ranking list is geared up now, it's geared up to win tournaments, that everything is top heavy on prize money and indeed ranking, which is the same thing. So you've got to win tournaments to really rocket up the list, not just be consistent anymore. That was a tremendous long pot. It's best of the match.
Mark Williams would have been proud of that one. Mark Williams would have been proud of that one.
Six.
He's still only 31 years of age, Woollaston. He turned pro when he was just 17, so he's been around quite a long time now.
But the way snooker is now, we might have seen the best of his game. He might mature with age still. Become a champion in the next 4 or 5 years. Who knows?
It seems that players increasingly are developing later than they might once have done. A lot of players enjoying their greatest success in their late 30s. Woollaston's still a long way off that.
Played the cannon there on the red by the black. Only half of it that he could hit from the angle he was coming in at, and obviously to his disappointment, made no contact, so end of break.
Ben Woollaston, 13.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's a really bad outcome, Philip, to get the double kiss there. It was avoidable, and it's a fairly basic containing safety shot, which when you get the double kiss, it could hardly be any worse. Cue ball doesn't go anywhere near where it's meant to. It's presented an opportunity, albeit with high value colours, not available at this stage.
Six. Seven.
It's not the perfect split by any stretch of the imagination. But he might still be on a red. Yeah, he's on the one near the pocket. Kewell seems to have taken a bit of a flyer up the table.
13.
He didn't envisage it going that far. I think it's time to play a little safety shot hiding behind the yellow from the brown. Well, that's not the worst outcome. Would like to have been putting and scoring, but second best is that shot.
One.
Interesting shot. It looked a bit like a push shot, but I don't think it was. The cue ball travelled very quickly through the red. Of course, Mark would have been the first to own up to it, so I think it was an optical illusion. I don't think it was one. The cue ball didn't have to go quickly past the red, though, having made contact.
Four. Nine. Ten. Sixteen. 17.
And he's managed to keep this break going very well because he's now freed the pink, albeit, of course, we know the black is not in any way available.
24.
But he could win the frame without getting that red away from the black now that he's accumulating all these points. His lead is up to 30. And that red by the black will not necessarily come into play if he can take all the others.
31. Mark Williams, 44.
Very good break. And as you can tell from someone like Williams, he plays to the scores and he leads by 44 points with only 43 remaining. So that's a typical Williams break that. It was never easy, but he kept going until the point. effectively of no return for his opponent, barring Snookers. And I have to say, what I've seen so far, I've been impressed. In my mind, I felt that Williams might struggle here, and just because of what I've seen, and it would only be human nature not to be, you know, at your absolute best so soon after such an epic victory in the World Championships, but he's played pretty well.
One.
It's a good pot. He needs a colour, but also needs some kind of a shot to get the snooker on what will be the last red. Might just slide in behind a bolt colour here. That might be the way he goes. He could get the cue ball alternatively in behind the black.
2 victory over Ian Burns. Ben Woollaston, of course, needs a snooker here to turn this frame in his favour.
Well, there's certainly a gap there this time, and Mark Williams, should he knock this in, that will certainly be a 3-0 lead. There'll be no comebacks from here. Well, he's up and looking at the shot again, but I think we're pretty sure that it certainly pots cleanly. Yep. Might be doing one of his one-eyed tests or whatever it is he does with his sighting, or both eyes closed. Either way, he passed the test. 3 snookers to tie. I don't see Woollaston carrying on.
1 on frame.
It's been a very efficient performance thus far, hasn't it, from the reigning world champion. He looks very sharp, and Ben Woollaston has a mountain to climb already. He trails Williams all to do. Hasn't had much to go at thus far. 3-0 down already to Williams, who has combined some excellent long podding with some typically wily break building. Mark Davis still 3-2 up on Luca Brissell. It was 3-0 at one stage, so Brissell fighting to try and turn that in his favour. Ollie Lyons now 3-2 up on Alfie Burden, who's won the 5th frame. Not much more snooker to come on this first day of 3. £50,000 for the winner on Sunday evening.
1.
Woollaston has got to start scoring now. He's got to take every opportunity that comes his way and make something big.
Yes, of course, he's unfortunate, I guess, to draw the world champion Mark Williams in this round. But for players of Woollaston's ranking, you know, this week's tournament should prove a real opportunity to get a ranking tournament under their belt. Of course, whoever was to win this event would go straight into the Champion of Champions, because not too many places occupied, given that the same players last year won just about everything.
3.
Multiple entries from the likes of Mark Williams himself and Ronnie O'Sullivan, Selby. Mark Selby's won. But there are plenty of places up for grabs, so your £50,000 winning here equates to a lot more money in opportunities for other events that it can lead to, spin-offs. But I think more importantly than all of that would be to call yourself a ranking tournament winner. Someone will get the chance. At the moment, Woollaston would have to turn this around before he could even think any further. But I just feel that players of his ranking should see this week as a real chance. Now, will the red pass the black when the black is respotted is the question. Looks a bit tight. Yes, he can't pot that red. He'd love to be on the red by the black. Got to play the other one and run through. Oh, that's a really good shot. That's a little bit of class there. Played it with a real plan. Didn't play it hidden hope. And like many players from Leicester, I suppose it goes back to the Willie Thorne era, and players since, they've invariably got very good cue ball control, and obviously Mark Selby, but I would include Tom Ford in that as well, who's someone who seems to be all about placing the cue ball where he wants it and keeping the shots easy. Woollaston is similar.
$27. 28. $35. 36.
'Well, there were possibilities of getting on a red, but percentage call was to open them up again and have more options, and that's what he's done.
$44.
And a real chance to close out the frame, and if he did so here, it would be quite an impressive break and much improved on what he's done previously in this match.
$49.
Judging by his expression there, he was slightly concerned that things might go awry positionally, but he's okay.
$50. 55. $56.
Well, almost at the point of no return in the frame. And
62.
just crept in that red, but the black will secure frame 4. And this is a lot more like it from Ben Woollaston.
$69.
It's been a fairly decent match, actually.
70.
Williams playing well. Not missing very many shots himself, but Woollaston just starting to find his touch here. That's a lovely little cannon as well to prove the point I was making about his cue ball control, which is extremely good.
$76.
It might prove to be a little too late to turn the match in his favour, but you never know. Plenty of best of sevens have been won from 3 down with 4 to play. You're never safe in a match of this duration, even if you are 3 frames up.
83.
And if Woollaston could get in early in the next frame and keep this fluency going, who knows? But he is good to watch when he's in full flow.
90. 91. $98.
Century would be nice. I mentioned he made 18 last season, which actually, given what was a very modest campaign, isn't a bad tally.
Yeah, that's his first one this season, obviously, and it's been a very fine break. But you're right. I mean, you have a bad season, it's quite simple. You're just not playing enough matches to keep making the centuries. Whereas if you're going deep into tournaments, then the centuries will obviously come.
110.
Been very well compiled, though. He went into the pack on 2 separate occasions. Both were good percentage calls, I think.
110.
Well, the in-off doesn't matter. That was a superb century break from Ben Woollaston, but he still has much to do to turn the match around.
Mark Williams.
So Mark Williams looking to polish off matters here in frame 5. Didn't get a look in the 4th frame. I can tell you that Mark Davis has sealed victory over Luca Brissell, 4 frames to 2. Davis, another player who has enjoyed most of his best results in his late 30s, early 40s. He's yet to win a ranking event, but he's knocked on the door a few times, reaching the semi-finals on multiple occasions.
Yes, it's difficult to say what is the peak age for a snooker player anymore. It used to be, you would have said, during Stephen Hendry's era, in your 20s, when he won just about everything. But players in their 30s, as Ben is, and many of the players over 40, you mentioned Mark Davies, you're right, his best snooker has been in the last few years. So there's a maturity. If a player's cue action can be intact, their experience counts for a lot.
Likewise, Stuart Bingham, likewise, Barry Hawkins, and a few others as well.
One.
He's on the pink, but he can't pop the pink, I'm afraid. It's just a safety shot.
Mark
Decent
Williams.
one, though. And the reds are so widely spread that actually getting a safety shot back is not easy here. Hard to find a real thin edge of a red that takes you back to the bulk area from where the balls are. Maybe a containing shot could leave the cue ball at this end of the table might help. And he may be going for a pot. No, back on the container. He just pushed the red far enough up the table so it's not potable. And that was a nice little nudge to leave the cue ball back in that corner.
Foul. Ben Woollaston.
Very unlucky to knock the blue in. Now that is a good safety shot. That really is perfectly played. Mark Williams even has to tap the table there in acknowledgement. I think the little shake of the head was that the black eventually went safe. And of course, you play a shot as good as that, you want all the balls out in open play for the chance that you might get following the shot from your opponent. Mark's done very well there. There's a really good return. And again, we know how well he popped. Good effort to the plant. He's a bit unlucky, I think, if he's left the red on. Cue ball back to baulk was a big part of that shot. But the other red has drifted up the table as well.
One. Seven. Eight. Thirteen.
Again, nice little cannon. Black certainly not out of the game, but quite difficult to pop with the reds all around it. So at the moment he'll make do with reds and pinks, I think, maybe the blue. And would be quite difficult to say he's going to go on and win the frame from here, but he could do damage.
Twenty. 21.
Well, Black will go back on his spot and becomes a good chance, but the next red's not so easy from here after he pots the black. Well, concentrating so much on getting onto a red, he missed the black. That's the cardinal error at this level. He's very disappointed with that.
Woollaston looking a little puzzled, and he was able to overcut the black there. 25 his lead.
1.
chance for Williams to get right back in the frame and who knows, go on to seal victory. He only needs this frame.
Seven. 8.
Good win for Ollie Lyons, who made up for the disappointment of his dad losing earlier to Mark Allen. He's beaten Alfie Burden 4-2. So he wins the bragging rights in the Lyons household.
16.
Not a good angle on this black. He's coming right away from the reds naturally. Unless there's a plant of those two reds just to the right of the black, it's quite hard to see how the break will continue all that long from here. Well, it's not a dead plant, but it might be one of those that he could turn into a plant. And if he can, this is not the worst place for the cue ball to finish for him to do it. He's got to make it into a plant here. The reds are an inch or two apart. Oh, that's a terrific shot.
24.
And he's developed a number of reds also.
Didn't take long to line that one up, did he? It was trickier than he made it look.
Well,
Just dropped.
Stayed down on that one. I honestly didn't think that was in.
31. 32.
Mark Williams has been flying along. His average shot time well under 20 seconds. At one stage it was around 17, 18, which is pretty brisk.
38.
A chance to play the plant, which would develop the other red that's thinking.
Well, there you go. Ben Woollaston's not hanging around either, but it's been a high-class match, this.
45.
3 big breaks, including the 110 from Woollaston to keep his slim hopes alive, but he must be wondering now whether the overcut black might be his final shot.
Just got a little bit of work to do here once again. Those 3 reds are a little awkward with regards to just getting on one of them. He was straighter on the black. He might have gone into the reds or one of them. But there isn't a lot of room to finish behind one. So it might not be that he wins the match here. Let's see how this next shot goes. Can he get the cannon? Well, the red he's closest to might go.
Woollaston keeping his fingers crossed that it doesn't. It's obviously very tight. Well, very difficult to tell.
Yes, it might be half a pocket. It's one of those where you'd like to have the left jaw available to knock it in off of, but unfortunately I think the other red's in the way of that part of the pocket. He's always been a shot maker, Mark Williams, creating things from sometimes nothing, so there is a real chance he'll make the shot, but it's not easy. Problem is, if he misses it, he opens up, I think, all 3 reds. That's the issue he has. It's a risk. Is it a risk worth taking, though?
And although at the moment he's in a position of strength, leading 3-1, were this to go awry, Woollaston could easily clear up 3-2, and then it's a different game.
I think that angle, Philip, tells you it's really tight.
Ultimately erring on the side of caution. Might have played that safety a little better, but it's a handy lead of 26 with 51 left. So Williams catching the middle pocket jaw, allowing Ben Woollaston the chance to get back in.
But he's not played that shot very well. I would have thought that hitting the red full on and maybe playing on the other red, the one near the middle of the table, would have been the answer. He's on this red, but cueing from tight on the side cushion means he has to hit this very well. This is an eminently missable shot. Because of that, really. He's not anywhere near it.
Ben Woollaston.
May not have looked so difficult, but I can assure you they are not very nice shots to play. Could it be his last? To say I'm very surprised he played it into the bottom pocket. It must have been more difficult than the middle pocket. I guess if it goes in, well, it's match over. And he must have felt that he wasn't so sure to be on a colour, but the pot was certainly not straightforward.
One.
Woollaston might be surprised to be back in action quite so soon. Well, maybe he feels that the green is a real stretch for him. I think he must be playing the snooker here, is he? Difficult pot. I'm surprised he's played it that way, but it is a natural round the table. That's a good shot. It was not an easy shot on the yellow. I wondered if he was actually playing the snooker there. But he is a very positive player.
And he's given himself a great chance to extend this match to at least a 6th frame.
Four.
Surprised that Williams played that red the way that he did, up into the top right pocket. I don't think he'd have missed it into the middle pocket, but he felt that maybe there was an element of
11.
difficulty about getting onto a colour.
13.
It's Woollaston's to lose from here.
It's
been an impressive response to falling 3-0 behind to the world champion. Well, he'll now fancy his chances. Only needs the pink.
Yes, and he's absolutely perfectly on it as well, so he's done well.
From a seemingly hopeless 3-0 to a much more promising 3-2 deficit now for Ben Woollaston, who needs the remaining 2 frames. Mark Williams still needs one. He had a chance, missed a long red. Under a bit of pressure as Woollaston wins frames 4 and 5. Excellent clearance to pinch the 5th when Williams had the chance to take it out. Missed a long red into the green pocket. So he still needs that elusive single frame. Woollaston needs the remaining 2. prize for the winner, a meeting with China's Zhang Yong, who beat Rory McLeod by whitewash earlier.
Yes, and that was played as a shot to nothing, but I believe the red has drifted into a potable position, that he's the one that he's missed here.
One.
I think that he played with more topspin and to get to the red out in the open by the left of the black there, and would have opened things up, but he was way short on that, so I think his end of break.
And Woollaston 4.
It's worth reminding ourselves that Woollaston has a far superior head-to-head with Williams, having won 4 of their previous 5 meetings. And that's got to count for something when you're behind. He knows he can beat him, and he's done it numerous times.
Played a good shot there, Williams, in behind the green. It was a nice shape on the safety shot. Yeah, it's an unusual one, isn't it? You would have thought that Williams would have a good record against Woollaston, given their status in the game respectively. Williams, though, was in the doldrums for a couple of seasons, has to be remembered, until the season that's just gone, which could have hardly gone any better. But before that, he was thinking about packing in the game, and there were a lot of players beating him who he probably felt shouldn't do.
Yes, it was his wife Joanne that persuaded him not to pack it in. Williams was making noises about emigrating, putting his cue away for good. And Jo said, "You must be kidding. I'm going nowhere, and neither are you. Get back on the practice table." And, well, the rest is history.
That's another tremendous long pot, and he started the match by knocking in quite a number of those.
Williams hangs his head as the pink is respotted on the black spot, but the red still goes.
Eight. 15.
I'm not sure that he's on the red to the left corner. That's the one he wanted to be on, but there's a red that's almost stuck to the cue ball there, which means he might not be able to get through to that red.
Yep.
It's a little bit awkward down there. He may be able to get to it, but either then it's tricky. If he's using the spider, it might be to just get a little bit of side in the ball, apart from the fact that he's cueing awkwardly as well. This is just a little bit intricate placing of the spider, and getting from red to colour here is not easy. Well, the cannon's worked out okay, but not
16.
certainly by no means perfect. I think there's a red in the middle of the bunch which will pot here,
22.
as well as the one that he's close to, of course. Just caught the knuckle of the left-hand corner pocket, otherwise the cue ball would have been up, been behind the pink. Typical Mark Williams break again.
29.
Just getting on with it, not finding it simple. But just knocking in pot after pot.
30.
Now, has he just rocked back onto that red so that he can't get to the pink?
Well, that would be pretty unlucky if that's true. Terry Camilleri looking on the referee. And if the red moves, of course, it'll have to be a foul. Good shot. It was ever such a tricky one, but he played it well again. He's unfazed by difficult shots, isn't he? Always has been.
37.
He's always been able to treat this game as just that, a game, even though it's his livelihood, it's his profession, and of course he cares as much as anyone about winning, but he's always been able to take that mentality to the table that actually, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the only thing that seems to faze him is when people move behind his shots, and I think that's what happened there. Anything on the table he's able to cope with. I'm glad he potted it, because whoever that was would have got the all-time great glare, I think.
43.
Maybe his experience as a amateur boxer in his formative years, and again, William showing his frustration at having his concentration broken there for a second. Perhaps that put snooker into perspective, because clearly, whatever happens on the snooker table, you're not going to come away from a match with a black eye or a broken jaw.
Yes, can't quite see what it was that putting him off from our position, but something was. Anyway, he's back in the zone. And closing in on the match. Could have won this in the previous frame, but found a way not to. But typically of the man with his very sound temperament, he's put himself in to a good position again.
51.
And he'll be keen to deliver the killing thrust now. He knows that Ben Woollaston has started to play well, and that he's capable of punishing Williams if he does make a mistake. So wants this job done and dusted here and now.
57.
Woollaston has played very well from 3-0 down to give Williams something to think about.
58.
Well, you wouldn't want to be straight on this, because it means you can't really get anywhere near to a red. Can't make an angle and do anything with it. That was, I think, what he's worried about, whether he could hold the spot if he was straight. I think that's what he's tried to do. So the pink will go in the highest available, which is the black. So again, pretty well
64.
thought out. Needs red and black, that would be enough. Well, just a red actually. Red any colour would absolutely guarantee the frame, but this is actually frame and match ball.
65.
Good performance. Never really, couldn't be sure how he's going to play tonight. Mark Williams, all the experience, we should have known better than to doubt him, but I don't think he's been the most dedicated in the last month or two, but still living off the confidence of what he achieved at the Crucible in the spring. Missed that by a mile. Snookers are needed.
Mark Williams.
Looks like Williams is through though.
Yeah, the lead is 67, 59 left, so 2 snookers to tie. He can't believe he's not put it beyond any doubt.
1.
But it's been a pretty high-class match, this. Breaks of 53 and 85 from Williams, the 53 just now. And 110 from Woollaston. Looking at the scoreboard, he needs a couple of snookers to tie, and that's assuming he takes blacks with the remaining 3 reds. This is all or nothing. No. And there's the handshake. Well, the world champion Mark Williams picking up where he left off at the Crucible Theatre with a fine victory over Ben Woollaston, who threatened a brilliant fight back from 3-0 down to close to 3-2, but Williams showing all of his guile and vast experience to get over the